if you're taking 12% of the fertilizer out of the whole entire agricultural system for the year, and you're reducing herbicides 15% out of the entire global system for the whole year, like what kind of yield reductions are they looking at in the fields? A, from the fertilizer, but B, the competition of the weeds in there, take in the nutrients that would be used to directly go to grain head for corn or wheat or whatever it would be. So you have any idea what the numbers might be in declines based on those two inputs?
Well, probably 15 and 15, 30%.
So the 15 would be a loss from the fertilizer, and then the 15 would be weed control loss. So 30% global reduction in agriculture this year.
Grow bags. That's I've used them for years and years. I've also grown hydroponically in my greenhouse as well, with NFT trays and fancy greens and all kinds of other stuff. But that's what I don't like about that. That's not something you can do with no electricity.
And good afternoon, everyone. Today with me, Dennis DeLaurier. And then greenhouses and getting out almost instant gardens by putting grow bags together. So that's what Dennis's side's about. Me, I'm going to dovetail into that with the fertilizer and the herbicide shortages, where we're going with planetary alignments that are going to cause magnetic disturbances on our planet, i.e. more volcanic eruptions, stranger weather with jet streams, cloud cells. So hopefully, today's talk between he and I will give you some really valuable information in terms of getting ready. And remember, if you want to go to TheGSMPrepper.com, and remember that GSM's grand solar minimum. So Dennis, I appreciate you spending your time.
If you don't have a garden, you started late, you saying, oh, I need to prep. I need to get going here. I need to start growing my own food. Okay, well, yeah, you can go out and you can, get a shovel. And I don't believe in digging into the soil in the first place. I think that's crazy. Okay, I believe in no dig gardening. Okay, if you're going to garden at all. But even a quicker way, an instant way, is to get yourself 50 or 60 grow bags. They're 5 gallons. Okay, they have holes in the bottom. You fill them up with good compost and soil or whatever you can get your hands on. Okay, and then you plant things in them. You start your starts. You put your starts in there. The nice thing is that you can put them close together. There's no weeding. Okay, there's none, hardly any at all weeding. Okay, you can regulate the water. Water doesn't evaporate like it does into the ground. You dump gallons and gallons of water into the ground and it just goes all over the place. Well, in a grow bag, no, that's not going to happen. So you can regulate it, and you would say, oh, well, you might. Doesn't the water kind of pour out of the bottom of the green? No, it doesn't. If you're watching what you're doing, okay, you can see when you've watered it enough. And the nice thing about a grow bag is it sucks gobs of oxygen down to the roots of the plant in that bag. Okay, you've got a grow bag which is it's a foot and maybe a foot and a half tall. Okay, that plant is going, and that soil is going to be nice. Really nice, and it's not going to be solid like you go out someplace, you can't dig but 3 inches down, and then you got to get some sort of machinery in there, before you can grow anything in it. Well, not in a grow bag. So those roots are going to go all the way to that bottom, and they're going to be looking for water down there. Okay, and then when you put water in there, you're sucking a lot of oxygen down into those roots. Okay, so that's one of the advantages of a grow bag. The other is it's instant. Okay, I can go out to the store, if it's still open, I can give you a lot of compost, sacks. You can fill up the grow bags with sacks of compost. Okay, and then I can start my garden. Okay, another thing is it's efficient space-wise. Okay, if I want, I could make the grow bags in a circle. I always wanted to do that, so I kind of like walk around, in this kind of matrix or circle to grow bags, that'd be kind of fun. Okay, you can hand water them if you want. You don't need a drip system. If you have fertilizer, you can just mix it up in a watering can and go around water and fertilizer your stuff if it needs it. You can, the plants, I think, respond more. You can tell what the plant's doing a lot better than when it's in the ground. Okay, sometimes you just don't know what that plant needs, or if it's happy or not, or if it's going to be productive or not. But if you can get in there close up and inspect that plant, which is off the ground, hey, that's another advantage, isn't it? Okay, especially at my age, 88. I mean, I'm going to be 89 this year. Okay, and I don't like to bend over on the ground, and I don't like to dig with a shovel. Okay, I'd rather just, get my little foldable military spade out and fill it up with compost, and start my starts in my greenhouse. Start them early in the spring, because that's the nice thing about a greenhouse. You want to start your starts and make those starts as big as possible, especially with squash, because of squash beetles. Okay, get that plant huge. Okay, and then take him in and plunk him down in that grow bag, and he's going to just take off instantly. Okay, the other thing is if you really want to be efficient, say you have a small patio or something, you could make a stair steps. Okay, it'd be stairs that are maybe 6 foot across and 3 or 4 layers up. Those stair steps, you could put grow bags in there. Okay, and you could, you would put all your tall growing plants in the back and short growing plants in the front. Okay, and so you could have a complete garden in a home built staircase type of thing. You could be growing your herbs and your tomatoes in the back, and maybe some of the squash on the side that are kind of runner squash, and that's another thing that I like. I think squash are an ideal plant, especially like something like a Waltham that will store 6 months after it's grown. Okay, you can keep it in your house for 6 months later. Indians did this for years. Okay, they used to grow tons of squash. They dig a hole in the ground. Okay, they had a lady that cut it all up. They sun dried it, and they put it in these root cellars, and along with corn shucks and all kinds of other stuff. And that's how they survive in the winter. Okay, so you can do the same thing with the winter squash. You can that stuff will feed you all winter. And when you run out of the last one about 6 or 7 months later, you got some more out there growing. So a grow bag is ideal. No weeding. Okay, it's focused watering. Okay, that's primarily the biggest. Well, the ease of use, an instant garden and focused watering are the I think the best thing. And if you know somebody going, oh, I never grew a garden in my life. Well, get online, order you some. Let's see. I think, what do I use? Greenhouse Megastore. I think that's who I use for my Greenhouse Megastore. And I order 5-gallon black plastic grow bags. You can, and if you don't have a garden and you say, well, geez, I'm old, or my back hurts, or I'm overweight, and I don't want to get out there with a shovel and do all these crazy things that people do in gardens, use grow bags. Okay, instant garden. So that's kind of where there's other ways of doing it. I'm also into Ruth Stout gardening, okay, which is a no dig. Okay, it uses hay and compost. You just grow in hay and compost. You want potatoes? It's really easy. You go out, 100-foot long strip, 3 foot wide. Okay, you put a bunch of compost down. Okay, you get your potato starts. You cut them up and they got eyes and all that. Drop them down that sucker, and maybe cover them a little bit with the compost, and put about 1 foot or 2 of hay on top of it, and keep it watered. And you'll have all the potatoes you'd ever want. No digging. Okay. The craziness people go through with potatoes. You've seen it on YouTube probably. They dig down, man. They got this dirt, and then as the potato comes up, and then they dump some more dirt on it, and then it comes up a little more, and they dump some more dirt. Well, that's crazy, just insane. Okay, I'm actually right now I've got potatoes left over from last year that are they're getting ready to sprout that I'm going to plant this year. Okay. So potatoes, that's another good one. Okay. Squash potatoes, dried peas, dried beans, and all these things you can grow in a grow bag. You could grow corn if you want. Just,
Yeah. So let me
dump
ask
some
you,
compost.
let me interrupt you there with the
Sure.
potatoes. So how thick is your compost when you're running? So let's say you're running 100 foot, it's going to be 3 feet wide. You run it 100 foot. How much initial compost do you put down? Then you put your starters in more compost, and then a foot of hay or more. Are you putting a bed of straw or something down there first before you put the compost on it, or walk me through that? I'm trying to envision it
Okay.
in my
Yeah.
mind here.
Well, what I hate weeds. Okay. And I live in Weed City. Okay. Let's face it, I've given up. Weeds have kicked my butt. Okay. And that's being kind. There's nothing I can do about weeds out here because I have on the other side of my farm, our farm over here, we have grass that they grow that clumps and puts out zillions, I mean, zillions of, if that's a number of seeds, and they blow all over here. So I don't care what I do. Okay. So what I do is I put down a small layer of newspaper. Okay. And then I put the compost on top of it. And then I put the hay. And that's it. And it's really kind of cool because at the end of the season, when you're harvesting, all that hay is composted down. And it went from about 2 feet to about 4 or 5 inches. That's what it's going to do. And you're going to end up, and then you're going to harvest all your potatoes. It's easy. You don't have to dig. You just, I get in there and I can get in there with my hands and harvest them if I want. Okay. In fact, I do sometimes. I want some little baby potatoes. I'll just go out there and put my hand underneath the hay, and I'll pick me enough for a quick meal. Okay. So that's the best way. It really is. It works. It's been proven over and over and over. And like I say, the growing the potatoes, you can actually grow everything, like I just talked about with a potato system. Okay, with the compost and the hay. Just keep adding hay. Her answer was people. She would go to seminars, and she did dress fully when she went to those, by the way. And they would ask her, "Well, what do you do about weeds?" And her answer was, "Add more hay." And then she would go to another, and then go back to the same bunch of people. Okay. And be talking about, gardening and stuff. What do you do about hay? And you say, well, didn't you hear me last time? You just add more hay. And that's what you do. You just keep adding hay. And eventually what happens is I made the mistake when I first came out here on this farm was using a tractor and plowed up my land. And I brought up seeds that were probably, 10 years old. And they were just waiting for some water. Okay, because they were down embedded in all that hard soil. And it was horrible. And it was I never got over that. I plowed that land and I never got over the weeds ever. But that may be my circumstance here, but that's kind of what it's all about as far as weeds go anyway.
So you're telling me that you can grow anything in that kind of hay bale system then?
Yes.
So anything will throw roots down in there. Are you talking about leafy greens as well? I mean, you're able to do lettuce in that?
Yeah, you do. Now let's, there's some common sense about this though. It's not.
I'm not very commonsensical. We used to
I'm not either.
shipping a pallet to do greens like that.
That's why I read a lot. Okay, because I'm I don't have the answer to everything. So it's out there somewhere. Essentially, what you do in a bed like that is you put it down, and a lot of people when they make a Ruth stout garden wait 6 months, okay, before they grow anything. So they let nature take its it's whatever it's going to do, and the newspaper will compost, the weeds will compact down and start composting too. And then, so what you do if you wanted to do lettuce, okay? Now if you know how little lettuce seeds are. Well, what you could do is you part that back. You put your seeds in there, Okay. And you kind of cover them up and you keep them nice and damp until they pop up about an inch or two. And then you just push the hay back kind of next to it and a little over it. And finally, it'll just pop up to that hay. Now, if you're going to grow starts, like, a lot of times I grow like tomato, pepper, and other kinds of starts. I'll grow those as large as I can. And then I get me one of these augers for my drill. Okay. And I drill my holes out with a little drill auger. And then, put the start in there, bring all that compost back around that plant, and then heap the hay up around it as much as I can. Okay. And then just, water it when I need it. And that's Ruth Start, or that's the way she farmed for years. And, it looks like, it looked like a very pretty garden, just a bunch of, weeds almost, or not weeds, but hay all over the place. But it's very, very prolific. And if you keep doing that year after year after year, what your soil is going to be like. Okay. It's just going to get better and better and better. And so that's kind of the way I got a garden out here like that. Go to my blog. I've got pictures of all that stuff. And
yeah, well, and one question about that.
Yeah.
Are you talking about hay or are you talking about straw? Because, I know there's a fine difference, and I've been questioned about that a few times.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. You have to be careful with anything you put in the ground in a garden nowadays because of weed killer. Okay. And so you want to if you can, get your hands on, if there's such a thing on this earth anymore, called organic hay. Okay. If you go out and get wheat, stubble and stuff like that, you have to be careful about how that farmer grew that crop or that hay. A lot of people. And so I'm lucky enough. I have a horse farm across the street. Okay. They keep, 80, 90, 100 horses for the state of Texas. And they're really finicky about what they feed their horses. Okay. And so they don't want their horses eating hay that had, weed killer and all kinds of stuff in it. So I get some pretty prime horse poo. Okay. But and they buy hay there, and I get a lot of that hay too, just waste hay. Because I don't know if you ever noticed a horse, they waste hay like crazy. Okay. It just goes everywhere. And I get a lot of that. So I'm using that. I went to a hay dealer here in Central Texas, and said, "Hey, I want some organic hay that doesn't have any weed killer or anything, used around it, Roundup and that sort of stuff." And he said, "Sir, I cannot even guarantee you anything that I sell doesn't have it in it." Okay, so you have to be careful about your source. And as far as using hay and like wheat stubble and things like that, those work just as well. They work just as well. The stubble doesn't break down as quickly as the hay does. Okay. Hays are, like you said, they're grasses, and you have to be careful what kind of grass. Okay. But I'm talking about regular grass that I guess I could look up some names of the grasses, but
field grass.
Yeah. So you have to be careful, or you're going to end up with seeds in that. But that was another thing that they always asked Ruth Stout. What about the seeds in the blah, blah, blah? And she said, add more hay, just add more hay. The seeds are going to they're going to drop down into the bottom down there, and they're not going to see any sunlight. Okay. Probably. And, and the seeds are just going to go the way most seeds go when you compost them. So I'm not saying that's the answer, so I don't know. But I love my grow bags. Let me tell you, I can grow anything in them. Okay. Just anything, any kind of herb you could ever dream of, I can grow in a grow bag. And you can grow corn, and you can grow squash and peppers, and what else do you want? I guess you could grow. I mean, I use grow bags a lot of times to start fig tree starts and stuff like that. Just poking them in that and letting them root. But so anyway, grow bags, don't write that off. Look at it. I've actually, like I say on my blog, I think I even have something on that or videos. I have a download of some of my old blogs that I don't know. It's about 450 pages long. You can download. Okay, it's my original surviving the Grand Solar Minimum Prepper blog I had, and I took down one year, but I saved it all as a PDF, and you can download that. But anyway, grow bags. That's it. That's the way to go, especially if you don't have a garden right now. Okay, you want one in the spring, and you don't want to get out, and you don't have a big yard, and you just don't want to get out there with a tractor and plant something, or get a shovel and start digging. And hey, you might live in one of these neighborhoods where the lady comes by and checks your house and make sure you don't have any weeds in your yard. Well, maybe she wouldn't care if you had grow bags, on your patio growing. It's kind of like flowers, right? So these what are those called? Home something, I forget. I never lived in one, but
that have their own
regulations.
But I own my house.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't. Well, we can take your house if you don't paint it the right color. Grow bags. That's I've used them for years and years. I've also grown hydroponically in my greenhouse as well with NFT trays and fancy greens and all kinds of other stuff. But that's what I don't like about that. That's not something you can do with no electricity. Okay. Grow bags. Yeah, you could, it'd be a lot of work, but you could water 400 grow bags. That would take a while.
And I think about also the fertilizer shortages coming in too.
Right.
So you could target the usage of the fertilizer much more succinctly than
putting
it out even in the rows, because there's going to be a lot of washout, and it'll just go to places that it's not used.
Well, we have chickens. Okay. So I use a lot of chicken manure. So that's pretty cool. That works really well. That's good fertilizer. And
it is. Yeah. We cleaned out the chicken coop when we were putting out the garden there and just kind of breaking down the chicken coop a little bit to try to revert and turn it into a greenhouse. It's still under production,
right.
But that chicken manure just, everything took off so fast. You could see where it was on the garden in some place, and then other places didn't produce as greatly, but where the chicken dung was, for sure. Now, there's going to be a lot more people looking for these types of things too. These farmers right now are being pushed and pinched because they can't get chemical fertilizer. So almost everybody is looking for additional composting, manures, etc. So if you think you might be able to secure some now, it'd be a good idea, because as we come into the planting season, it's going to be the run on runs that you've never seen anything. It's going to shake the core of our societies because the food is not going to be grown as much. So I have a quick question for you then. Maybe you can help me out with some numbers here. So far, it looks like there's going to be a 12% decline globally in fertilizer availability for this year moving forward. And at the same time, the herbicides, now, you got the two classes of herbicides. You got the grasses and then you got the broadleaf. So grasses are the things that are running up and down in corn rows mainly. So what's that? Accent Q and Roundup. And there was another one that's mainly for grass.
Right.
But then you got all those other, groups of chemicals for broadleaf, like group 27, group 2, group 4, that the USDA is recommending farmers shift to instead of using Roundup.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a 15% or more decline not available for the farmers. So if you're taking 12% of the fertilizer out of the whole entire agricultural system for the year, and you're reducing herbicides 15% out of the entire global system for the whole year, like what kind of yield reductions are they looking at in the fields? A, from the fertilizer, but B, the competition of the weeds in there, take in the nutrients that would be used to directly go to grain head for corn or wheat or whatever it would be. So you have any idea what the numbers might be in declines based on those two inputs?
Well, probably 15 and 15. 30%.
So the 15 would be a loss from the fertilizer, and then the
Right.
15 would be
Yeah.
weed control loss. So 30% global
exactly.
reduction in agriculture this year.
And it's going to get worse over the years, of course. Okay. You know, they're going to finally use up that soil, so there's no microbial life in it at all. Okay. And that's really the big problem why we have to have fertilizers to start with. Essentially, our farmland has become hydroponic. It's essentially holds the plant root. That's all it's good for. And it holds the fertilizer, but that's it. Okay. The roots aren't getting much out of the soil at all. It's all from the fertilizer. So, you know, was essentially ruined the whole damn earth. I'm sorry to use that word, but that's kind of what we're doing to our soils. We're ruining the earth. And we're taking all the microbial life out of it. And we're replacing it with synthetics, which are not sustainable at this point. And I think it's going to get worse. Okay. And, you know, my recommendation is, you know, if you're at home, you know, get some chickens, start composting. Okay. You know, not, and this idea that you can feed the earth sustainably is a fairy tale. Okay. You can't, it's just not possible. Okay. Yeah. We have 8 billion people. Okay. Permaculture cannot feed this earth. Okay. I love permaculture. I've studied it. I've taken courses. People say, oh, it's organic. You got to go organic. Well, yeah, but can you feed 8 billion people? And then they say, well, let's go hydroponic and put it in, you know, 22-story buildings with LED lights. And, you know, well, can you live on lettuce? You know, trying to grow corn in there or wheat, it's not going to happen. So we live in a kind of a, you know, we live in interesting times, to quote a curse. Okay. And so I think it's really going to have to get down to the individual in the community. And at that point, yes, you can feed people. You can feed people at the community level. Okay. But everybody's going to have to pitch in. It's kind of like when I look back on my grandparents and my great grandparents. Okay. Is my grandparents, they had a garden, they had a cistern. Now, this is in modern times with telephones and electricity and gas and everything else. Okay. But they had a cistern, they had a pig. Okay. They had a garden, they had chickens. Okay. They had a big black 35-gallon old pot that they boiled water in with lye soap and washed all the sheets and everything in, and the underwear and everything. Okay. They had a wash tub. Okay. Well, none of that took electricity, nothing. Okay. So you could get your water, you could grow your food, you could get your eggs, and you could eat a chicken every once in a while. And you had a pig. And by the way, my grandfather also had a smokehouse. Okay. So he had smoked ham and bacon and stuff like that. Okay. Well, that was my grandparents. Now, my great-grandparents, it would have been worse. Okay. They would have had to live in a world where, their grocery stores didn't have much,
Frontier stores.
Yeah, frontier stores. You absolutely had to take care of yourself. You had to have good water. You had to take care of your health. You had to make sure you didn't cut yourself. And if you did, you did something about it. There weren't hospitals and ambulances and 911 and police protection and stuff like that. Well, we may go back to that. Okay, so that's how you need to think about what's coming. Okay, and all that can be mitigated by community. That's the answer. And if there's no community, then you're on your own. And boy, that's tough. That's tough to do on your own. Okay.